Quigley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy C. Brooks, Commissioner, Precinct 1.
Present.
Marty Van Ravensway, Commissioner, Precinct 2.
Here. And doesn't that sound good?
Gary Fickus, Commissioner, Precinct 3.
As a member of the Walking Wounded, I am here, present.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner, Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes quorum.
And it's great to have a full court. I told somebody this week, I said, we're on the verge of having a healthy court. So I think it's great to have everybody here today. I think there's many of us that are looking forward to 2008. So Ron Bertel is going to give us the invocation this morning, and if everybody will remain standing afterwards, we'll have the pledges.
Thank you, Your Honor. You're all bow with me. Our Father who is in heaven, hallowed be your name. Thank you for this beautiful day as another opportunity to do good things. We thank you for the fresh canvas that each day brings for us to leave our marks on this world. May we mark carefully. We thank you for the peace and prosperity that this county is experiencing and pray that these blessings continue. We ask that you provide your power, understanding, and wisdom to the members of the Commissioners' Court so that they may act righteously and in accordance with your will in all that they do today. Bless them for their service. Enable them to effectively discharge their divinely appointed duty to provide for a peaceful and orderly society for the people of this county. Thank you also for the prosperity and protection our nation has received and continues to enjoy, and may that also continue. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you again, Ron, for stepping in there. Mr. Mangus, agenda announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have several announcements for you this morning. The first is on purchasing. Items H, 6, and 7. Both of these concern the sale of recycled paper. There are new court communications in your red folder this morning. Also, members of the Court, when we get to the appointments of various boards, we have included in your red folder a letter from the Council of Governments as it relates to a particular task force that they're asking us to appoint 2 members of the court and 1 technical person to. This concerns the regional outer loop and the rail bypass. When we get to that particular point in the agenda, I'd like to talk to you all about those appointments. And then finally, members of the court, we have posted a meeting of the Commissioners' Court, a special call meeting for tomorrow at 1 o'clock in 504C. The purpose of this it's to simply discuss with other community members and hospitals and health providers the federally qualified
Health Center.
Health Center. Thank you, Your Honor. That slipped my mind there a second. This is the second meeting.
Sign that you're just getting a little older. Something that many of us experience.
You know, today's going to be a long day in court.
Could be. With all 5 of us here, it could be an interesting day.
And with the events of last week, it probably be even longer. So this is the second of a meeting that we've had on this. The reason that we have posted is that there is a possibility that we may have 3 members of court that might participate in that meeting, and if so, we had to agendize it. It is not a required meeting, but you are invited. It is just simply a discussion that we're going to have, and we may have a quorum. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Members, you have before you the minutes from our regularly scheduled meeting of November the 20th.
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Proclamations today. We have 1 proclamation, and I believe Sharon Dira is here. Come on forward, and I'll read the proclamation, and then we'll get a picture of it, and we'll go from there. This proclamation is for Employee Learning Week, whereas the organizations of Tarrant County are committed to creating a highly skilled workforce that is critical to growing and sustaining a competitive advantage, and whereas they recognize that having a knowledgeable, skilled workforce improves the performance of those organizations, and whereas learning develops individual and organizational knowledge and expertise, and whereas the American Society for Training and Development, the world's largest association dedicated to workplace learning and performance professionals, has declared December 3rd through 7th, 2007 as Employee Learning Week and designated this time for organizations to recognize the value of employee learning. And whereas the Fort Worth Mid-Cities ASTD chapter, whose members are workplace learning and performance professionals, and the organizations in Tarrant County have demonstrated their commitment to developing the skills of employees and the workforce, now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby proclaim the week of December 3rd through 7th, 2007, as Employee Learning Week in Tarrant County. In witness whereof, we have heretofore set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 27th day of November, 2007. And I'll move its approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. The motion passes unanimously. Neither one of these guys is doing too well now. There needs to be a training class.
You cut me from here, way down here.
There needs to be a training class on how to operate cameras. I'll tell you. Congratulations.
Judge Whitley and Commissioners Court, as president of Fort Worth Mid-Cities chapter, we greatly appreciate this and the importance of education for the workforce so they can be successful and competitive. Thank you.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Elections. Mr. Rayburn. Welcome. Good morning.
Ms. Hamilton.
Ms. Hamilton. I'm here to ask the court to, with two items. One is the approval of early voting sites and the central counting station for the December 18th joint election.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Second is the approval of the election day polling locations for the same December 18th runoff election.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank
So
you.
have we pretty well got everything set now and ready to go for the
I
18th?
think so.
And then we'll have to canvass those votes sometime between the 26th
Right. And the 29th.
and the 28th.
I believe we're going to do that on the 27th.
26th or 27th?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll kind of be having y'all look at your calendars, and that'll probably also serve as our emergency, our kind of our meeting for claims and things like that during the holiday.
It will, Your Honor.
Okay?
Thank you.
Next, Human Resources. Ms. Glenn.
Move approval to receive and file the. Second.
We have a motion to receive and file the personnel agenda.
That's it.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank
Are you in a hurry today?
We've been,
Yeah,
this
it's
is an effort to not make her get any
Yeah,
exercise.
yeah, and it's been pretty effective. The second and final item, we're asking the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for JP3. The JP has an administrative court clerk whose last day is this Friday. That individual has 69 vacation hours, a little bit more than 8 days. The department is requesting a waiver in order to be able to fill the job this upcoming Monday. They believe that this individual is critical. The fiscal impact will be approximately $1,060, and I believe Judge Casey is here in the event that the court had any questions.
Is this a chief clerk?
I don't believe so.
Is it what?
A chief clerk.
It's
And I'm-
administrative court clerk.
So I would assume that what's going to happen is you're filling maybe from within or not?
It's my understanding that the job has already been posted, which of course departments are permitted to post positions. They just can't fill positions until they're vacated, and the position will be vacated on this Friday. So they've already posted the position, and they have a list. It's my understanding.
If I may, we have some great people, by the way, and someone else decided that one of our girls was good enough that they wanted to pay her a whole lot more money than we are to take her. We're wishing her well. We're glad. But right now, she has accumulated some extra days of vacation, and we're not allowed to hire someone until that expires. We would like to bring in somebody as soon as we can so that we may begin the process of getting it going. Also, we have a lot of people wanting time off with the holidays, so we're flexing schedule. We need a body right now, and that's why we're asking for the waivers to try to get things started. I don't know if we can get someone in on that Monday, but we would like the opportunity to get someone in as soon as we can.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brewer, Public Health.
Morning.
Morning.
Public Health is seeking your approval for the submittal of a Texas Commission on Environmental Quality application for environmental laboratory accreditation for our department's North Texas Regional Laboratory.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'd
Please.
just like for Ms. Brewer to explain what that will mean for this community.
Sure. Our laboratory does the water testing for about a 33-county area in north central Texas. And EPA is now requiring, as part of their quality management program, that there be this accreditation program. We're accredited for a number of things. This is a new accreditation that hasn't happened in the past, and so we're submitting this to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality to be in compliance.
But it really doesn't change what you're doing.
No.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? I think we have two motions in 2 seconds.
Whatever.
We probably ought to just go with the first one.
Yeah, I think.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And did I respond to your
Yes.
question? Thank you.
That short-term memory.
Are there any appointments today?
I have one here for the Access Committee at JPS. Nancy Gordon.
Is that a motion?
That would be a motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Nancy Gordon to the Access Committee. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Is there any other? Briefing items, Mr. Mangus?
I have one other issue on appointments, Your Honor. If I could talk to the court about that, since we don't have anything.
Caught you off guard here on a little bit on the. It's the prerogative of the chair to adjust the agenda. You know,
My
it's,
computer is on the blink here.
Is there something you're trying to avoid in the agenda, perhaps?
No, there's nothing I'm trying to avoid in the agenda at all. I didn't call on you, and I've got the sheriff back there ready to put you in jail if you come on up here. All right, Duff, you're in trouble, Bubba. Yeah, that looks like an ugly hog. Yeah, I knew it was going to happen. I had my obnoxious LSU tie ready to go and shredded it on Friday. Go right ahead, Mr. Beecham, since you're up here.
Good morning.
But be careful.
When Texas loses and Arkansas wins, that's almost my perfect weekend.
Well, I'm going to have to tell you, it was not mine. I have in-laws that went to Nebraska, and a daughter who went to Texas who dates an Aggie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those weekends. And then LSU. And so after the first touchdown that A&M scored, she gets this text message to which she promptly writes back, "I'm watching the game. I don't need an additional scoreboard." So it was not a good Friday for Whitley household in the football deal. So, yeah, well.
We have 8 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-018. This is a bid for the purchase and installation of stainless steel cabinets and counters at the Correction Center. Recommendation would be to award to Stelco Industries in the amount of $240,806. We're also seeking contract approval from the court as well as acceptance of the payment and the performance bond.
Are these replacement cabinets or what?
I'm not sure, quite honestly.
Mr. Phillips is here.
A lot of dollars worth of cabinets is why I asked.
Yes, sir. These are replacement. The original ones were press board and laminate we installed. We made a mock-up from one of the pods, and it's stainless steel, and it'll be there as long as you and I.
I hope it's
longer than you and I.
Let's hear the fight song again.
I'll move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2 is another bid award recommendation for RFP number 2008-009. This is for SAP upgrade for professional services. Recommendation will be to award the Sage Group in the amount of $873,223.60. We're also seeking contract approval in the court.
So moved.
Second, but since we're streaming video and everybody in the world is looking at this, I think an explanation of what this expenditure is about would be appropriate.
And the wise man comes.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have currently had our SAP system for 6 years, and during that time it has performed admirably, done the job that was asked of it, but it's time to upgrade it. I would like to say is that during the process of working with the steering committee, we budgeted quite a bit more money for this project. And working with purchasing and working with all the staff, we were able to bring it in far under that budget.
Good job.
Does that answer your question, sir?
It does indeed.
Well, since there probably isn't an awareness of what SAP is, it sounds like SAP. Maybe you could just give a little 50-word summary of what that does.
It's an enterprise system that allows us to account for our funds at the county through a centralized location. And as we move forward with integrating our justice systems and many more of our applications, we will have a consistent and economical way of accounting for all of our funds at the county that we spend on a daily basis. It is the industry's top accounting package, and we have it installed at the county, and we are the only public entity that has it successfully running in Texas.
You went over 50, but that was good.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our next item is also a bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-021. This is our annual contract for automotive truck equipment, tires, and tubes. Recommendation would be to award on a per unit price basis, selecting as our primary vendor Graves Wholesale Tires, as our secondary vendor Southern Tire Mart.
Move approval.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 4 is also a bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-019. This is our annual contract for the printing and mailing of voter registration certificate cards. Recommendation would be to award on a per unit price basis, awarding to the primary and secondary vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our item number 5 is a bid award recommendation for RFP number 2008-001. It's an RFP for residential placement for juvenile services. Our recommendation is to award the 4 vendors as shown in the court communique for an amount not to exceed $2,197,500. Also seeking contract approval from the board.
I'm assuming that's a budgeted item.
Yes, it is.
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 6 is also a bid award recommendation for bid number 2007-029, the bid for the sale of recycled paper. That recommendation will be toward the high bidder, Pioneer Paper, the rate of $150 per ton.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 7 is another bid award recommendation for bid number 2007-030, again for the sale of recycled paper. Recommendation will be toward the high bidder, again Pioneer Paper, the rate of $25 per ton.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our last item is an item in regards to RFP number 2008-016 for intensive community-based program for juvenile services. We are recommending rejection of these proposals and seeking permission to reissue this RFP.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. And I appreciate the gift. I hope I'll have one for you next year. Maybe.
If he's still here.
If he's still here, that's right. If he's not, then I'll go after Renee. She was really kind of quiet today. I appreciate her humbleness.
It's early.
That's right. Mr. Manius, do you want to?
Yes, Your Honor. We could talk a little bit about under appointments to various boards. I've included in your court backup a letter from the COG as it relates to the Regional Outer Loop or Rail Bypass Stakeholder Roundtable. You might recall that this has been a continuing item of discussion by COG. In fact, it's somewhat interesting that many years ago when we began to talk about the Outer Loop was actually going to run through Tarrant County. But the region has grown substantially that the Outer Loop now will encompass the entire Tarrant County, will not even be in Tarrant County. We've also talked about Tower 55 and issues relating to the rail problem that we have and the delays with moving trains through the central part of Fort Worth. The roundtable itself is really divided up into various sub-areas, and on the back of that sheet, it's a 2-page sheet, and it's front and back. It shows you the various sub-areas. We are part of the southern western sub-area with Hood, Johnson, Parker, and the southwestern, western and southern part of the neighboring counties. What COG is asking us to do is to appoint 2 elected members of the court and 1 technical person from the staff to be part of this roundtable. We would recommend, first of all, on the technical member that Renee Lamb, who is Director of Transportation, be appointed to that particular position. Also, since this is something that is countywide influence, Your Honor, we would suggest maybe that you be appointed to this. Also, one commissioner also be appointed to it.
And I might add on this, the one place where this is going to come in to Tarrant County, at least probably in the short term, it'll come into the BNSF Alliance Yard up in that particular area, because while the loop will eventually extend up into Wise County and then over into Denton and Collin County, that probably will not occur for, my guess would be 10, 15 to 20 years out. So, court members, since it'll probably affect the Alliance Airport area, I would like to suggest that maybe Gary be, Commissioner Fickus be the other.
I'll make a motion to that effect for you, Renee Lamb, and Gary.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Briefing items. Well, no, excuse me, claims. We have before you the claims, including the
Move
addendum.
approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor, on the briefing items, we have one item to bring to the court this morning. It's item A, concerns a TIF reinvestment zone number 6. Ms. McMillan is here to address the court at this time.
Judge, Commissioners, the City of Arlington is proposing the use of tax increment financing reinvestment zone to encourage the redevelopment in the historic Birds Fort area in North Arlington. And as you may recall, back in 2004, the City of Arlington originally presented plans for the redevelopment of this area through the Lakes of Birds Fort TIF, which was their TIF number 2. However, the former developer failed to move forward with the project as planned, and when a new developer came on board, he had a new plan, so they abandoned TIF number 2 and now are bringing forward a new project with reinvestment zone number 6, the Viridian TIF. As it's currently laid out, the TIF funds generated from this zone will provide for an estimated $263 million in infrastructure projects. These include major road and bridge construction, floodplain mitigation, utility and water sewer improvements, public landscaping, mobility-related projects, and $86.3 million in educational facilities, which will be actually funded from HEB ISD's increment that they're going to be putting into this district. Now, public funding for these projects is necessary to facilitate development in this area because it is long sat vacant, mainly due to lack of infrastructure and its location in a 100-year floodplain. In total, an estimated $396 million in public infrastructure development is expected to be made within the zone. $93.3 million of that will be actually paid by the developer. Another $39.5 million will be paid through public improvement district assessments, and then finally $263 million will be paid through the TIF and increment revenues. These public infrastructure investments are expected to facilitate almost $1.4 billion in new residential and commercial capital development over the 30-year life of the TIF. It's projected that the development will include more than 3,800 single-family residential units, over 795 multifamily units, and an expected 1.2 million square feet of mixed-use commercial development, including retail and small office uses. As required by the state tax code, the City of Arlington is here today to make a formal presentation regarding the preliminary finance and project plan for the zone. I'd like to have Robert Stearns come forward from the City of Arlington to give you that presentation.
Welcome.
Thank you, Judge. Commissioners.
Welcome, Mr.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
Your first appearance before Commissioner's Court.
Yes,
you
sir.
might get a bit of hazing, but it's all right.
I can understand. I'll be well prepared for that. And I hope you all excuse me. I'm battling a little head cold today, so you may understand me a little better than I can hear myself.
Well, let me
here.
begin by asking, where'd you go to school?
Where did I go to school? Not Arkansas.
All right.
I'm a TCU grad.
Okay, well, you're safe.
Okay. I'd also like to
LSU this year.
I'd also like to introduce. We do have David Hawes, our consultant on this project, with Hawes Hill Calderon, and Bob Kimball, who's with the Huffines Group. They're here with us as well to answer any questions that you may have. As was stated in the report, what we are presenting to you today is a tax increment financing district number 6, and the county commissioners are well aware of tax increment financing districts and what they can do. The ability to freeze the base value of a particular designated area, and then in turn take the increment that is generated by new development, put that back into the zone for the funding of public infrastructure improvements. This is allowed by Chapter 311 of the Texas Code. I'll just provide a quick overview of the development. As was mentioned in the report, this is a 2,300 acre, almost 2,400 acre environmentally challenged site in North Arlington. It is currently valued at approximately $17 million, which using the county tax rates, that's generating about $45,000 annually to the county. It has had several owners, 7 since 1980. Several attempts to develop this site have been brought forward to you, as was mentioned. This was recently brought forward to you under proposed TERS number 2, the Lakes of Birds Fort TERS, which was terminated in February of this year.
Hold on just a second, Robert. Would you explain why this site is environmentally challenged.
That was a very good point leading into. This site sits in the FEMA 100-year floodplain. And so in order to make it compatible with the Corps of Engineers standards, there is significant excavation and grading that has to happen at the site. There are 2 landfills at the location. It has a host of, because of the earlier efforts to develop the site, there have been a lot of issues relating to soil compaction and degradation of the wetlands there. So there's a host of environmental issues: wetlands degradation, restoration of the ecosystem, the landfills located at the site, the need for the excavation and to comply with the Corps of Engineers standards that lead to all of these environmental challenges.
Thank you.
What the TERS would facilitate would be the creation of 3,800 single-family homes. These are high-end homes. 1.2 million of mixed-use commercial development. As I said, the majority of the costs will be related to the floodplain mitigation. About $45 million of the project costs related to floodplain mitigation, and the restoration of 1,100 acres of the diverse ecosystem and wetlands. As far as the commercial development, they're anticipating a town center with some smaller boutique-type stores, cafes, and neighborhood services that would benefit those living in the surrounding area and those visitors coming into the site. This area also has an MMD overlay, and that assessment will be used. I think it was related called a PID assessment. It's actually an MMD assessment that will be used to fund additional improvements out of the site. And as I said, it has an estimated value at full build-out of $1.4 billion. The project cost allocation is broken down into 2 areas. You have the project costs and the non-project costs. Project costs are those items that will be funded by the TERS. The developer will pre-fund or pay out of pocket about $139 million, which will be reimbursed by the TERS district. And then the TERS itself will pay out right about $124 million of public infrastructure. So you have about $263 million that will be coming out of the TERS directly as far as the project costs. The non-project costs are those items that will not be funded by the TERS, that will be funded strictly by the developer or by the MMD assessment. You see there's $133 million of additional improvements there.
Have you calculated the leverage that we'll get on that $262 million in terms of final build-out?
It's actually what I looked at was the total investment with 374, which I'll show you. It's about a 1-to-4 leverage ratio, taking into account that 374 million. So I imagine if you back that down to the 263, you're probably talking about a 1-to-5, 1-to-6, somewhere in that area.
What's the difference? You've had 7 different owners, and nobody's been able to make this thing work yet. What's the difference in this owner and the 6 before?
Well, as you said, there have been several different owners. We had a study that was completed in 2002 by Economics Research Associates that really talked about the highest and best uses for this particular piece of land. And what they really spoke of was this high-density residential type of project, which the Huffines community is currently bringing on board. So we think from the standpoint of some of the previous development efforts that have been put in place, I think this falls closest in line to what ERA suggested would be successful in this particular area, and as noted that in order for this project to occur, for any project to occur for that matter at this particular site, that a tax increment reinvestment zone would be needed in order to take care of those environmental issues and public infrastructure issues.
That's a good answer to his question. However, you're talking about taking public dollars to build high-end housing, and I'm not sure I don't have a problem with that.
Well, Commissioner, I can understand the concern related to the high-end housing aspect, but I guess the question is, do we not use public funds to bring the development forward and then have nothing occur out there? As I said, we are just generating probably about $45,000 to the county right now in taxable value. Without the TERS, we won't have any development whatsoever. So we think that what we're bringing forward is a significant project that will be a benefit not only to Arlington but to the community. And the inclusion of the high-end housing really makes it just a more a project that's more in line with what ERA said would work and would be successful out there, and hopefully make it a more successful project.
Again, a good answer. Is there not a way to build in an affordable housing component?
We have not had a discussion on an affordable housing component to date related to this project. I don't know if Mr. Kimball would like to talk more about the affordable housing piece.
For that piece of property, perhaps I can understand the concern, but I think with something the size of that, we really have to look at the totality of what is developed in Arlington, and it has a significant base of affordable housing. And I've tracked those numbers now for several years, and this is the last place that Arlington has a chance to put high-end development, because there is none really to speak of right now in Arlington.
The numbers that you're showing in the project costs, and you may be fixing to get to that, what exactly are we building within? I see cultural facilities, I see educational facilities. What exactly are the dollars that we're talking about in the project costs
versus the non-project
that we're putting our tax revenue into? What are we going to be building with that?
You see here in the slide is a project cost overview, which can go by line item of those particular costs, listing the developer reimbursable costs, the TERS costs, those listed under project, and then the non-project costs. And as you see there, we'll be spending under the TERS, primarily it will be dealing with the roadway infrastructure, utility infrastructure. The floodplain mitigation is a large piece of that. The mobility-related projects, let's see the potential for a TRE station linking this site. The cultural facilities relates to facilities to commemorate the Lakes of Birds Fort area. That is still kind of a project that we're still trying to fully define, but what that is, I think there will be some kind of annex that will be able to learn a little bit about the history of the Birds Fort area. And then the educational facilities that are listed are our two public schools that will be funded by the HEB ISD's contribution into the TERS.
So I'm assuming then that, go ahead, and you know my questions on those.
Well, Judge, as you may recall, when we looked at this as TIF number 2, there were several of the projects on there that we discussed not participating in, and we anticipate that to continue discussions with the city, and we've already talked with them on a staff level, that we would be going through and the vetting process with this and looking at what projects we will actually participate in and what our participation level actually will be. So that's a process that's going to continue on through the first of the year.
So to that end, if we're talking about two schools in there, then HEB would participate to the level of the cost of those two schools.
Correct. Only on their schools. And, you know, obviously they're aware, the City of Arlington is aware we're not going to participate in building a fire station. There's several projects that are included that the city's contribution will go toward, but we'll be reducing our cap amount so that we're not putting money in toward those projects.
Okay. When the judge said, you know what question I'm going to ask, that wasn't the question I had in mind. I thought you were going to ask the sales tax question.
No, I hadn't gotten to that one yet.
All right. We'll reserve that one for you.
But, we have, in my mind, I've got, just as you mentioned, we don't build city structures, or we don't build structures for other governmental entities with county money. And so that's the one thing I want to make sure those things have been eliminated from our, in establishing what our ceiling would be on that.
And that kind of dovetails nicely into the next slide that I had keyed up. As you see here, the jurisdiction would, we're projecting a 78% participation by the county. As I said, that takes out or backs out any participation in EMS or fire stations. We've had that conversation with staff, so we understand your concerns about that. I believe if you'll remember this, under the Lakes of Birds Fort TIF, we have the county projected at a 90% participation. So we've begun to back out those items that we know that the county does not want to participate in. We also made an adjustment related to the sales tax issue, and I know that's an important component of how you all look at the TERS districts. As you all know, Arlington has been very proactive, I think, in including sales tax revenue within the TERSs that we have brought forward to you, particularly the Glory Park and the Arlington Highlands tax increment reinvestment zones. We did not include the sales tax revenue in this particular project simply because of the fact that this is more of a residential development. I mean, there is some commercial. There's, as I said, there's 1.2 million square feet of commercial development, but less than half of that is going to be retail development. And so when you compare the overall scope of the project and what that potential for retail sales would be, we kind of felt that was a fairly small amount, and so we did not include it because it's a different type of project than the Glory Park or the Arlington Highlands TERS. So that's for that reason we did not include sales tax in this particular district. As you see here, the city would be participating at 85%. The hospital and college district, based on their policy decisions, will be at 50%, and the ISD at 16.5%, representing their debt service tax rate. That would all go into contribution of the TERS. The property owners would pay the assessments to the MMD, and then those breakdowns would be used. The TERS would be used to pay the capital improvements, and the MMD for the maintenance and operations in the district. For the overall ad valorem impact, as you see here on the slide, this project over the 30-year period is projected to generate about $922 million in taxes to the various entities. With the TERS increment, the investment in the TERS would be $375 million, and so the net benefit to all entities would be approximately $548 million. For the county in particular, the taxes generated would be about $91 million. The TERS increment based on a 78% percentage. Participation would be $70 million, realizing a net benefit of $20 million to the county.
And did I understand you to say that we're getting about $40,000 now?
That's correct. That's based on an estimate of $17 million in value and the county's current 2007 tax rate. So our next steps, we're planning to bring forward hold a public hearing at the city on December 4th. We would have council create the TERS through city ordinance at its December 18th meeting. Look forward to appointing TERS board members in January, and then we will continue to work with staff and the developer to finalize the final project plan and financing plan, and hopefully be able to bring that to you in the February or March 2008 timeframe.
To what extent are they? Are there any considerations being given to building green or LEED certified commercial buildings or anything along that type of lines in the particular area?
Let me once again refer to Bob Kimball on that.
Judge in the court, Bob Kimball with Huffines Communities. Yes, this will be a green community. We've hired AES, and we're working with the Audubon International to be the only gold certified project in the state of Texas. We're looking with GE on cogeneration to take landfill gas and provide energy for the school. So this will be a signature green project for the state. We expect to win all the awards that we can nationally. We're using Peter Calthorpe, who's supposedly recognized one of the top planners in the country, to do the plan. We'll have a town architect on staff in the community on the architectural side. So all of the ULI principles are being applied. So sustainability is a big deal. All the drainages, green buildings, solar on the amenity centers, you're going to see all that highlighted. And education along that with River Legacy Park to demonstrate what we're doing with the landfill gas for the kids so they'll know.
Rainwater recapturing.
Well, water's a big deal because of the...
You got plenty of water down there. You can...
Well, actually, it's interesting. The lake system, there's 1,100 acres of lakes systems in open space, which is why it's a very expensive development. And maintenance is an issue, so we've factored that in with the PID to help control sustainable over the life of the community to maintain those lake systems. But evaporative losses are significant. So capturing rainwater, getting the drainage filtered instead of doing hard pipe. We've got a whole green system on how we're going to handle the drainage with rain gardens to filter it before it gets to the lakes. So there's a lot of money been spent. Millions have been spent planning already for green systems within the community to protect the wetlands. Ducks Unlimited is going to help us with duck habitat in certain areas where that can work. All the contouring of the lakes are being redone to enhance the wetlands and open space habitat. And a
What
lot
kind of requirements are you going to put on your residential builders to require them to?
There'll be Energy Star requirements throughout the community. We are doing a mix of products. The Arlington's really interested in the community being upscale, a quality community. So we've talked to them that you can still do some affordable products within the range and average over 300,000, which is what we want. And that with new urbanist principles, you can mix densities and get affordable and quality. So then they've agreed to that.
I'm glad to hear you recognize that principle.
Yeah, it's really important, and we understand that. We're doing things like accessory dwelling units above garages as another alternative for affordable. There'll be multifamily here, attached town products. So there's a mix, but it will be quality. It's real important that the architecture's right and the colors are right.
Under previous developers, one of the discussions, you mentioned the rail stop, the possibility of the rail stop in there.
Yes.
There had also been discussion in some of the floodplain area down in there about parks that could be set aside for like soccer or for some of the youth recreational type deals. Is that still something that's being looked at in?
Yes, in conjunction with the schools, we're working with HEB schools. Dr. Buinger there is a forward-thinking guy. He wants to do shared use facilities both for active arts, an arts center that we can performing arts center that we can use. We'll have an amphitheater in the community for outdoor activities, and more importantly, we're linking. The closest comparison of what we're trying to create, but with more of a resort landscaping package, is White Rock Lake in Dallas. There's already 4.5 miles of trails through River Legacy Park System, which is an amazing gift to the city that already exists. And we're going to link those systems and wrap them around the lakes. So you'll have, instead of 4.5 miles, you'll have an 8.5 mile loop around the lakes that will have separate paths both for joggers and for walkers. So the park systems are extensive. There's 3 different parks. They're open to the public. There will be some private amenity centers, but you'll have a boat dock on the water with sailing. We want to do a sailing club for those kids that are smart and are competitive but can't play football, so maybe they can race sailboats. And we'll have the rowing activities and things like that out there.
In one of the previous presentations, there was talk of gas wells.
Yes, ma'am.
How many exist, and are there plans for others?
The Barnett Shale harvest there is significant, and there are 9 wells on the site. So what we've negotiated before we acquired the property was a surface use agreement that limited that activity into certain areas, and we've negotiated a landscaping and wall package to mitigate that. So there'll be a masonry stone wall with a signature stone of the community 8 feet high, and then we'll do the landscaping and the maintenance around those. We'll back houses to those where we can. As you know, when a gas well's gone and they're done, there's just a little tree sitting there. All the noxious uses were prohibited on the site, so no gas compressor sites, no frack pits. It's a closed system. All the trucks have to go to an off-site location to get the frack water that comes out of the wells. And that's the best we could do to mitigate that use and still allow the harvesting of the gas, which we think is still important. And we don't have any mineral rights either, so we were very interested in making sure that document was negotiated well to protect our economic interests.
I'm sorry, but I missed it. Do you have plans for others, or?
Yes, there are.
How many more?
There is active drilling that will go on the site. Now, the way I understand the ordinances in the city of Arlington, they would need to get busy and get most of that drilling activity done, because once the houses come in and around, it would make it very difficult for them to get a permit. Not impossible, but difficult.
But again, that's not something you control. Because
No, sir, we
of the fact
do.
that you do not have any royalty interest.
That's right.
And this is more a question probably for Ms. McMillan or the City of Arlington. The 8578, to be very honest with you, doesn't sound like the kind of a split that takes into account what we're not participating in, and the fact that y'all are not putting any of the sales tax in. Again, from our perspective, what we're looking at is trying to see that we're not putting in more of a commitment, quite honestly, than what the city is in a lot of these instances, especially if it does have some retail components. And while half sounds like maybe there's not a whole lot, when you start talking about a 600,000 square feet of retail space in what is a rather, what you're portraying as probably a rather affluent type of a development, I would have to believe that the sales tax in that particular area could be, somewhat significant. And again, the difference between 78% and 85% doesn't seem like it would be doing much more than just covering what the things are that we're trying to exclude from the deal.
And Judge, as I noted in the staff report, this is the original recommendation that the City of Arlington is bringing forward. We anticipate that staff, along with representatives from Precinct 3, which this project is in Precinct 3, but also we'll probably have, I think we have also a representative probably on the board from Precinct 2 from Arlington. We'll be sitting down in the next month to work this out. Because I agree, we think that the actual recommended participation rate may come in a little bit lower than what they've anticipated, to take into account just what you've mentioned.
And, we really haven't, we've talked about we really haven't set policies, and I understand that with regards to sales tax. But I think that's something that we certainly asked you to look at. I think in addition to that, and something that I would like to see us continue to look at is the environmental, the green part of it, and it sounds like they're going above and beyond in that particular area. So from that standpoint, I certainly want to commend them on that and feel, a little bit more positive about that. I mean, I think that first off, as was mentioned earlier, as you mentioned earlier, there have been 6 other folks that have come in here and have failed at getting this thing developed, and so we've continued to collect $40,000 versus millions. So, I'm very supportive of this development and want it to go forward, but I also want to make sure that we don't have more in the project than what the City of Arlington has in the project.
I anticipate next week having the Commissioners Court appoint representatives to this board, so then they can move forward then with working with the staff on coming up to an agreement, and then as Mr. Stern said, we'll have probably have a meeting, I guess, in the first part of January, end of January, first part of February.
So making the appointment to the board does not make the commitment to
No, it just appoints the board, and then that way, too, the staff from the precincts can and work with our staff here, Economic Development staff and the Administrator's Office, to come up with a participation rate and project plan that we are all happy with.
I just hope that, I agree with what you're saying, Glenn. I've lived here 30 years, and it seems that the last 20 years that project has been under some type of development. Sign goes up, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, article in the paper, then boom, nothing ever happens. And it's location-wise, it's centrally located, good access. I understand the challenges with the floodplain, the floodway, but
even before all the excavation took place that now created such a challenge to overcome, it had difficulties for development to come in. And I've even heard them back further than you have. So it's always been a challenge, and it remained unincorporated for a very long time. It was a recent acquisition to even incorporate it. And there is something that I had a little issue with in the incorporation, as Precinct 2 was working with the City of Grand Prairie to divest itself of the last very small parcel that we were responsible for the maintenance. Arlington left us with 2 more tiny little parcels that county has responsibility for maintenance. And so I would like to see that resolved as part of this effort that if we're going to develop it, let's do it right and remove those kind of little tags that belong to us.
Well, the affordable house issue also is obviously a sensitive issue.
Very sensitive.
To many, many people. But the reality is sometimes that is all a function of the land price.
True.
And you cannot pay, $70,000 or $60,000 for a lot and expect
I would
that
expect
you're
a
gonna have
lot
a
could even be
home
more.
on it that's $110,000. It doesn't work that
No,
way.
the math doesn't work. They have a lot of challenges. That I wish you well. I'd like to see this one work. I've been in Arlington my entire adult life, so it.
And I think also that
I beg to differ with the entire philosophy, because what you're after is a blended kind of a rate, which includes all classes of the property. It is a complete misconception that you can't do affordable housing in conjunction with high-end housing. It can be done. It's done all over the United States, and it can be done in this community as well. And I congratulate the developer for his foresight and willingness to take that on as a challenge.
Well, Roy, I agree you can do that, but somebody's leaving dollars on the table, which is somewhat unusual in the development business. So if they're doing that, they're leaving dollars on the table to accommodate, and I think that's a great noble cause that they're doing it that way. But that's the reality.
For our $280-odd million, I think that's something we have a right to expect.
I don't disagree with that.
I do think that in the presentation that there was mention that there was affordable housing as a part of this component. And what we'll do when we come back next week on the appointment, we'll have greater clarity for the court to point that particular element out to the court so we fully understand that piece in the overall picture.
And I think the point that Commissioner Van Ravensway also made, let's look at, I think that the community has done well in the past and has been concerned in the past. And I'm not saying that, I think it's a moot point because I think I heard the discussion of affordable housing being included in this already. But I think we need to also look at it in terms of, the city. I think the city has been very good about watching that in the past, and we just, that it needs to be a consideration, certainly, as we go forward. But I think we need to look at it in total and not just in a particular area from that standpoint. But again, I think it's a moot point.
I think this was an excellent presentation. I support the project, but you know what my concerns are.
And when we come back after the first of the year, after we've had a chance to sit down and work with Arlington, we'll come back and bring an updated presentation so you can see where we're at after we've kind of gone through this process some more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today and making the presentation.
Well done, Mr. Stone.
Thank you.
Your Honor, that's all we have at this time.
Okay. At this time, we will adjourn and we will recess and open session and proceed to closed sessions to discuss items exempted under sections 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. We are adjourned.
We on TV for that?
Well, I don't know. We haven't shown up on TV yet, but that doesn't mean.
15 seconds.
If I'll wait 15 seconds, we may be there.
That's right.